My name is Dr. Vivian Castellano. I'm 39 years old. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon at Houston Methodist Hospital. 5 years ago, I was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to a heart monitor, watching my husband pack his suitcase. He said I was holding him back. He said he didn't sign up to be a caretaker. He said he was leaving, and he said it like he was telling me the weather. Not angry. Not sad. Just, done. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't have the strength. My body was too busy failing me, my immune system too busy attacking my own heart. So I watched him zip his bag, pick up his keys, and walk out the door of the apartment we'd shared for 6 years. He didn't look back. And I didn't call after him. That was 5 years ago. Yesterday, I walked into operating room 4 at Houston Methodist, where a 34-year-old woman lay on the table with a type A aortic dissection, a tear in the main artery leading from her heart. Her survival odds without surgery were 0. Her survival odds with surgery were about 50%. Her name was Natalie. Natalie Warren. My ex-husband's new wife. Before I tell you how I held her heart in my hands, literally, in my hands, and decided whether to save her, I need you to understand something. I'm not a vengeful person. I'm not cruel. But I am a surgeon, and surgeons are trained to make decisions in the space between life and death. And in that space, there is no room for the past. Only the present. Only the patient. Only the truth of what needs to be done. If you've ever been left when you needed someone most, drop it in the comments. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who's out there. Let me take you back. Not to the operating room. Further back. To a small apartment in Houston, a young woman who thought she had it all, and the first time my heart broke before it ever stopped working. I met Marcus Warren in 2012. I was a third-year medical student at Baylor. He was a first-year resident in emergency medicine. We met in the hospital cafeteria, both of us too tired to be charming, both of us holding coffee like it was the only thing keeping us alive. He was handsome in the way that confident men are handsome. Tall. Dark hair. A smile that said he knew exactly what he wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. I was not confident. I was a woman in a male-dominated field, fighting for every opportunity, working twice as hard to be seen as half as good. I didn't have time for a relationship. I didn't have time for anything except studying and rotations and the endless, grinding work of becoming a doctor. But Marcus was persistent. He showed up at my study sessions with food. He waited for me after late shifts. He told me I was brilliant, that I was going to be an incredible surgeon, that he wanted to be there when I became the person I was meant to be. I fell for it. I fell for him. We got married in 2014, the summer after I matched into cardiothoracic surgery. It was a small ceremony. My mother cried. Marcus's mother cried. We danced to a song I can't remember now, and I really thought, that I had found the person who would stand beside me through everything. I was wrong. But I didn't know that yet. I didn't know that the thing that would break us wouldn't be my ambition or my hours or the stress of a surgical residency. It would be my body. It would be the one thing I couldn't control, couldn't fix, couldn't outperform. Let me explain what happened to me. In 2018, I was in my 4th year of residency. I was working 80-hour weeks, sometimes more. I was exhausted, but that was normal. Everyone in surgery is exhausted. I thought the chest pain was stress. I thought the shortness of breath was because I'd stopped exercising. I thought the swelling in my ankles was from standing too long in the OR. I ignored it. I was a doctor. I should have known better. But when you're the one who's sick, your brain does something strange. It tells you it's nothing. It tells you to keep going. It tells you that if you stop, you'll fall behind, and if you fall behind, you'll never catch up. So I kept going. Until I collapsed in the middle of a surgery. I remember the lights. I remember the beeping. I remember one of the residents shouting my name and then nothing. I woke up in the cardiac ICU. My own hospital. My own unit. There was a monitor beside my bed, and on that monitor was my own heart rhythm, and it was wrong. Very wrong. The attending cardiologist came in an hour later. His name was Dr. Patterson. He'd taught me in medical school. He looked at me with the face doctors use when they have to tell another doctor something bad. You have peripartum cardiomyopathy, he said. It's a form of heart failure that develops late in pregnancy or after delivery. Your heart is enlarged. Your ejection fraction is down to 25%. Normal is 55 to 70. I stared at him. I haven't been pregnant. You had a miscarriage 6 months ago. The condition can be triggered by pregnancy loss. It can develop months afterward. Your immune system may have been sensitized during the pregnancy and the subsequent inflammation. I know what peripartum cardiomyopathy is, I said. I'm a surgeon. I've operated on patients with it. Then you know what this means. I knew. I knew it meant I was done. Done with surgery. Done with the hours, the stress, the physical toll of standing in an OR for 12 hours at a time. Done with the career I'd spent a decade building. I need a heart transplant, I said. Not yet. We're going to try medical management first. Beta blockers. ACE inhibitors. Diuretics. If your heart responds, you may recover enough function to return to a normal life. But Vivian. He paused. You cannot continue your residency. The physical demands are too high. You need to step back. Focus on your health. I didn't cry. I was a surgeon. Surgeons don't cry. I nodded, and I asked him about the treatment plan, and I took the prescription he gave me, and I thanked him for his time. Then I sat in that hospital bed, alone, and I watched my own heart rhythm on the monitor, and I thought about everything I was about to lose. I told Marcus that night. He came to the hospital after his shift. He was still in his scrubs. He looked tired. He always looked tired. Peripartum cardiomyopathy, I said. From the miscarriage. He sat down in the chair beside my bed. He didn't reach for my hand. What does that mean? It means my heart is failing. I need to stop working. I need to focus on treatment. And if the treatment doesn't work, I need a transplant. He was quiet for a long time. The monitor beeped. The hallway outside was loud with the sounds of a hospital at night. How long? He asked. I don't know. Months. Maybe a year. Maybe longer. A year. He said it like I'd told him something impossible. Like I'd asked him to do something he couldn't do. I know it's a lot, I said. I know the timing is bad. You're in your second year as an attending. Your career is taking off. But I need you, Marcus. I can't do this alone. He looked at me. And in his eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not fear. Not sadness. Something colder. You want me to put my life on hold, he said. For a year. Maybe longer. I want you to be my husband. I am your husband. But I didn't sign up for this, Vivian. I signed up for a partnership. 2 doctors. 2 careers. 2 people moving forward together. I didn't sign up to be a nurse. I didn't sign up to watch you sit in a chair for a year while I do everything. I stared at him. I'm not asking you to be a nurse. I'm asking you to stay. He stood up. He walked to the window. His back was to me. Do you know what they told me in the ER today? He asked. They told me you collapsed in the OR. They told me you could have died. And do you know what I thought? I thought, I can't do this. I thought, I didn't choose this. I thought, I'm too young to be a caretaker. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not my heart. Something deeper. Something I didn't have a name for. Marcus. He turned around. His face was set. The face he used when he was making a decision he didn't want to explain. I'm going to stay with my brother for a few days, he said. I need to think. Think about what? He didn't answer. He picked up his bag. He walked to the door. Marcus. He stopped. He didn't turn around. I need you, I said. I'm scared. I'm sick. And I need you. He stood there for a long moment. His hand was on the door. I could see the muscles in his jaw working. You've been holding me back for years, he said quietly. Your residency. Your hours. Your ambition. Everything has always been about you. And now this. He turned his head just enough that I could see his profile. I can't do it anymore, Vivian. I can't be the person who stands still while you figure out how to move forward. He opened the door. He walked out. And I lay in that hospital bed, my heart failing, my career over, my husband gone, and I didn't have the strength to call after him. He came back 3 days later. But not to stay. He came back with a suitcase. He packed his clothes. He packed his books. He packed the photographs of us from medical school, from our wedding, from the vacation we took to the Galapagos Islands the year before everything fell apart. I watched him from the couch. I was on oxygen. My legs were swollen. I couldn't walk to the bathroom without getting winded. Where are you going? I asked. I found an apartment near the hospital. It's closer to work. It makes sense. You're leaving me. He stopped packing. He looked at me. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw something in his face that looked like guilt. I'm not leaving you, he said. I'm leaving the situation. There's a difference. There's not. He didn't answer. He finished packing. He zipped the suitcase. He picked up his keys. I'll pay the rent for 3 months, he said. After that, you'll need to figure something out. The rent? You're worried about the rent? I'm trying to be fair. Fair. I laughed. It came out as a wheeze. You're leaving your sick wife because she's holding you back, and you want to talk about fair. He walked to the door. He opened it. He stopped. I'm sorry, Vivian, he said. But I didn't sign up for this. He walked out. The door closed. I heard his footsteps in the hallway. I heard the elevator ding. I heard the sound of my life ending, piece by piece. And then I heard nothing. The next 3 months were the darkest of my life. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell my friends. I was too ashamed. Too proud. Too terrified that if I said it out loud, my husband left me because I got sick, it would become real in a way I couldn't undo. I went to my appointments alone. I sat in the cardiologist's office alone. I took my medications alone. I watched my ejection fraction creep up from 25% to 30% to 35%, and I celebrated alone. Dr. Patterson was optimistic. Your heart is responding to the medication. You may not need a transplant. If you keep this trajectory, you could return to a modified practice within a year. A year. A year of isolation. A year of watching my savings drain because I couldn't work. A year of Marcus's checks arriving in the mail like clockwork, paid exactly on the first of the month, exactly the amount he'd promised, not a penny more. He was keeping his word. He was paying the rent. He was doing what he'd said he would do. But he never called. Never texted. Never came to check on me. He'd cut me out of his life like a surgeon removing a tumor. Clean. Precise. Final. I don't know what hurt more. The leaving or the silence. Here's where I need to pause for a second. Because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, why didn't you fight for him? Why didn't you call? Why didn't you show up at his apartment and demand that he come back? The answer is simple. I didn't have the energy. And more than that, I didn't want someone who had to be convinced to stay. I've learned something about people in the years since Marcus left. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. He showed me that his love was conditional. It was conditional on my health, my productivity, my ability to move forward at the speed he wanted. When I couldn't meet those conditions, he left. I could have begged. I could have cried. I could have made promises I couldn't keep. But what would that have given me? A husband who stayed out of guilt? A marriage held together by obligation? I didn't want that. I wanted someone who would hold my hand in the dark and not let go. And Marcus had proven, in the most brutal way possible, that he was not that person. So I let him go. I let him go, and I focused on the only thing I could control, my own survival. I recovered. It took 14 months. 14 months of medication, of physical therapy, of slowly rebuilding strength I'd lost. 14 months of watching my ejection fraction climb from 35 to 40 to 45. 14 months of telling myself I would never let anyone make me feel that small again. In the 15th month, Dr. Patterson cleared me to return to work. Not to surgery. Not yet. But to clinical practice. To seeing patients. To being a doctor again. I cried when he told me. I sat in his office, a woman who never cried, and I sobbed like a child. You're going to be fine, he said. You're going to be more than fine. You're going to be extraordinary. I didn't believe him. But I was willing to try. I went back to work in 2019. I was 34 years old. I had no husband, no savings, and a heart that had almost killed me. But I had my hands. I had my training. And I had something I hadn't had before, a reason to prove myself. I threw myself into work the way other people throw themselves into religion. I saw patients. I read journals. I volunteered for every complex case, every challenging diagnosis, every surgery that other surgeons didn't want to touch. My colleagues noticed. My mentors noticed. Dr. Patterson, who had become something of a father figure to me, started bringing me into the OR. First as an assistant. Then as a co-surgeon. Then, slowly, as the lead. In 2021, I performed my first solo heart surgery. A coronary artery bypass graft on a 68-year-old man with triple vessel disease. The surgery took 7 hours. Every stitch, every decision, every moment was mine. When I closed the chest, when I watched his heart start beating on its own, when I walked out to tell his family that he was going to be okay, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Whole. I felt whole. By 2022, I was the youngest attending in the cardiothoracic surgery department. By 2023, I was the director of the aortic surgery program. By 2024, I had a reputation that extended beyond Houston, beyond Texas, beyond the United States. I was the surgeon other surgeons called when a case was too complex. I was the woman who had rebuilt herself from the ground up, who had taken a heart that was supposed to fail her and made it into something that could save others. I didn't date. I didn't want to. I had my work. I had my patients. I had a small apartment near the hospital that I'd furnished myself, with a balcony where I grew herbs and a cat named Scalpel who tolerated me because I fed her on schedule. I was alone. But I wasn't lonely. There's a difference. I didn't think about Marcus. That's not true. I thought about him. But not the way I used to. I didn't miss him. I didn't want him back. I thought about him the way you think about a car accident you survived. You remember it. You know it happened. But you don't want to get in the car with that driver again. I knew he was still at the same hospital. I knew he'd been promoted. I knew he was remarried. One of the nurses told me. A young woman. Pretty. A pediatrician, I heard. Someone who wasn't holding him back. I told myself it didn't matter. And most of the time, it didn't. Until yesterday. Thursday morning. 6:47 a.m. I was in my office, reviewing the surgical schedule for the day. A routine valve replacement. A lung resection. Nothing that required me to break a sweat. Then my pager went off. Level 1 trauma. Type A aortic dissection. Patient in or 4. ETA 15 minutes. Requesting senior attending. Type A aortic dissection. The kind of thing that kills people before they hit the ground. The kind of thing that requires surgery so complex, so precise, that most surgeons won't touch it. I was on my feet before I finished reading. I walked to or 4. My team was already assembling. 2 residents. A perfusionist. Anesthesia. The charge nurse was handing out assignments. Dr. Castellano, she said. We're glad you're here. The patient is Natalie Warren, 34 years old. Presented to the ED with acute chest pain radiating to the back. CT shows a dissection extending from the aortic root to the arch. Blood pressure is unstable. She's crashing. Natalie Warren. The name hit me like a scalpel to the chest. Warren. Marcus Warren. His wife. His new wife. I didn't pause. I didn't react. I'm a surgeon. Surgeons don't react. I nodded, and I asked for the CT images, and I started planning the surgery in my head. But something was happening inside me. Something I couldn't control. My heart was beating faster. My hands were steady, they're always steady, but my heart was not. I looked at the chart. Natalie Warren. Age 34. No known medical history. No previous surgeries. No allergies. Emergency contact, Marcus Warren, husband. Marcus Warren. My ex-husband. The man who left me because I was sick. The man who said he didn't sign up to be a caretaker. The man who was about to watch his wife be wheeled into an operating room, her life hanging by a thread. And the woman holding that thread was me. I walked into the scrub room. I turned on the water. I let it run hot over my hands. Behind me, I heard the doors open. I heard the stretcher. I heard the paramedics giving report. I heard the team moving, working, preparing. And I heard his voice. Natalie. Natalie, stay with me. Please. Stay with me. Marcus. He was in the trauma bay. He shouldn't have been. Family wasn't allowed in the trauma bay. But someone must have made an exception. Someone must have known he was a doctor. Someone must have thought it would help. I didn't turn around. I scrubbed. I let the water run. I let the soap foam between my fingers, under my nails, over every inch of skin that was about to touch his wife's heart. Dr. Castellano. The charge nurse appeared beside me. The patient's husband is asking to speak with the surgeon. He's very insistent. Tell him I'll speak with him after the surgery. He says he needs to speak with you now. He says. She paused. He says he knows you. He says his name is Marcus Warren. I finished scrubbing. I dried my hands. I pulled on my gown. I pulled on my gloves. Tell him, I said, that Dr. Castellano is in the operating room. And that she will do everything in her power to save his wife. That's what she does. That's who she is. The nurse looked at me. I think she understood. She nodded. She walked away. I walked into the operating room. Natalie Warren was on the table. She was young. Blonde. Pretty in the way that people are pretty when they haven't been worn down by life. She was intubated. Sedated. Her chest was open. The dissection was worse than the CT showed. I looked at her heart. At the tear in her aorta. At the blood that was pooling where it shouldn't be. At the life that was draining out of her with every beat. She was someone's wife. She was someone's daughter. She was someone who had done nothing to me except marry a man who had once been mine. And she was dying. Dr. Castellano? One of the residents was looking at me. Waiting. The whole team was waiting. I took a breath. I looked at Natalie's face. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were pale. She looked peaceful in the way that people look peaceful when they don't know how close they are to the edge. Let's begin, I said. Clamp. The surgery took 8 hours. 8 hours of dissection, of repair, of rebuilding a structure that was never meant to be rebuilt. I replaced her aortic root with a graft. I reimplanted her coronary arteries. I repaired the arch where the dissection had extended further than we'd thought. My hands didn't shake. My hands never shake. But my mind was somewhere else. Somewhere I hadn't allowed it to go in years. I thought about Marcus. About the way he'd looked at me in the hospital that first night. About the way he'd said I didn't sign up for this. About the way he'd walked out the door without looking back. I thought about Natalie. About what she knew. About whether Marcus had told her about me. About whether she knew that the woman holding her heart was the woman her husband had abandoned when she needed him most. I thought about what it would mean if she died. If I let her die. I could do it. Not on purpose. I would never. But I could be a little less careful. A little less precise. A suture placed slightly wrong. A graft angled slightly off. The kind of mistake that no one would notice. The kind of mistake that would look like the surgery was doomed from the start. I could let her die, and no one would ever know. I thought about that for exactly 3 seconds. And then I did what I've always done. I did the surgery the way I was trained to do it. Perfectly. Because that's not who I am. I'm not the woman who lets people die because of something their husband did. I'm not the woman who punishes the innocent for the sins of the guilty. I'm not the woman who takes her pain and turns it into someone else's tragedy. I'm a surgeon. I save lives. That's what I do. That's who I am. At 2:47 p.m., I placed the final stitch. Natalie's heart was beating on its own. The graft was holding. The repair was clean. She was stable. I stepped back. My hands were steady. My back was screaming. My feet were numb. But my hands were steady. Close the chest, I said. I'll write the post-op orders. I walked out of the OR. I pulled off my gloves. I pulled off my gown. I walked to the scrub room and turned on the water and let it run over my hands. And then I leaned against the sink and I closed my eyes and I let myself feel everything I'd been holding back for 8 hours. Fear. Anger. Sadness. Grief. All of it. All of it washing over me like a wave I'd been holding back for 5 years. I thought about the woman on the table. About the life she would get to live because of what I'd done. About the husband who would be waiting for her when she woke up. About the husband who had walked out on me when I was the one on the table. I thought about Marcus. About the face he would make when he saw me. About the words he would say. About the apology he owed me and the apology I would never get. I thought about the choice I'd made. To save her. To save his wife. The wife he chose over me. And I knew, in that moment, that I had done the right thing. Not because Marcus deserved it. Not because Natalie deserved it. But because I deserved it. I deserved to be the kind of person who saves lives, not the kind of person who lets them slip away. I walked out to the waiting room 45 minutes later. I was still in my scrubs. My hair was a mess. There was blood on my shoes. I looked like what I was, a surgeon who had just spent 8 hours in hell. Marcus was sitting in the corner. He was alone. His hands were clasped. His face was pale. He looked older than I remembered. Lines around his eyes. Gray in his hair. The kind of aging that comes from stress, from fear, From the kind of nights that make you question everything. He looked up when I walked in. He saw me. His face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock. Recognition. Guilt. Fear. And then something I didn't expect. Hope. "Vivian," he said. He stood up. He took a step toward me. "Vivian, is she?" "She's stable," I said. "The surgery was successful. She'll need to recover in the ICU for several days. But she's going to live." He stared at me. His eyes were wet. His hands were shaking. "You saved her," he said. "You saved my wife." "I saved my patient," I said. "That's what I do." He didn't say anything for a long moment. He just stood there, looking at me, looking at the woman he'd left behind, looking at the hands that had just held his wife's heart. "I didn't know," he said finally. "I didn't know you were the surgeon. I didn't know you were here. I didn't know." "You didn't know a lot of things, Marcus." He flinched. It was a small movement. But I saw it. "You're a cardiothoracic surgeon," he said. You're the director of the aortic program. I looked you up. When they told me the surgeon's name, I looked you up. I'm aware of my credentials. You recovered." He said it like it was a revelation. Like he'd just discovered something that had been true for years but he'd never bothered to check. "I did." "Your heart. You got better." "I got better. I got better without you." He closed his eyes. His hands were still shaking. He looked like a man who was trying to hold himself together and failing. "Vivian, I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry. What I did, leaving you like that, it was wrong. It was cruel. And I've spent 5 years trying not to think about it. Trying to tell myself it was the right decision. That you were better off. That I was better off. But I knew. I always knew." I looked at him. This man who had been my husband. This man who had promised to stand beside me and then walked away when standing became hard. "You said you didn't sign up to be a caretaker," I said. "And you were right. You didn't sign up for that. But I didn't sign up to be abandoned. And you did that anyway." He nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just stood there, in the fluorescent light of the hospital waiting room, and let me say what I'd been wanting to say for 5 years. "I'm not the same person I was," I said. "I'm not the woman who lay in that hospital bed and watched you pack your suitcase. I'm not the woman who begged you to stay. I'm someone else now. Someone stronger. Someone who doesn't need anyone to hold her hand." "I can see that," he said quietly. "I saved your wife's life, Marcus. Not because of you. Not because of anything you said or did. I saved her because that's what I do. That's who I am. And I want you to remember that. I want you to remember that when you look at her, when you hold her hand, when you watch her recover, I did that. The woman you left. I did that." He was crying now. Silent tears running down his face. He didn't wipe them away. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you, Vivian." I didn't say anything else. I turned. I walked away. And for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel the weight of what he'd done. I didn't feel the anger or the grief or the loss. I felt free. I went to check on Natalie 3 hours later. She was in the ICU, still intubated, still sedated, but stable. Her vitals were good. The graft was holding. Her heart was doing what it was supposed to do. Marcus was sitting beside her bed. He was holding her hand. His eyes were red. His face was exhausted. He looked like a man who had been through something he never wanted to go through again. He looked up when I walked in. He started to stand. "Don't," I said. "Stay with her." He sat back down. He didn't let go of Natalie's hand. I'll be checking on her regularly, I said. She's going to need time. Months. Maybe longer. The recovery from this surgery is long. It's hard. She's going to need someone to be there for her. Someone to hold her hand. Someone to tell her it's going to be okay even when it doesn't feel like it. He nodded. He understood what I was saying. I'll be there, he said. I'm not going anywhere. I looked at him. I looked at his wife. I looked at the way he was holding her hand, the way he was looking at her face, the way he was sitting in that chair like he would never leave. You said something to me once, I said. You said you didn't sign up to be a caretaker. He closed his eyes. He didn't answer. I hope, I said, that you've learned something since then. I hope that when she needs you, when she's scared, when she's weak, when she can't do it on her own, you stay. Because that's what it means to love someone. Not when it's easy. When it's hard. He opened his eyes. He looked at me. And in his face, I saw something I hadn't seen in 5 years. Remorse. Real, honest, painful remorse. I'm sorry, Vivian, he said. For everything. I know, I said. Now take care of your wife. I walked out. I didn't look back. I saw Natalie again 2 days later. She was extubated. Awake. Aware. She was sitting up in bed, looking pale and tired and very much alive. She smiled when I walked in. She had a kind face. The kind of face that makes you want to trust someone. You're Dr. Castellano, she said. Her voice was hoarse. Marcus told me. He told me you saved my life. I did my job, I said. You're going to be fine. Your recovery is on track. You'll need to take it slow for a while, but you'll be back to your normal life in a few months. She nodded. She looked at me for a long moment. And then she said something I didn't expect. He told me about you, she said. About what he did. He told me last night. He said he needed me to know. He said I deserved to know who saved my life and why. I didn't say anything. I waited. He cried, she said. He never cries. He told me everything. About the miscarriage. About your heart. About how he left. He said he's been carrying it for 5 years. He said he didn't know how to carry it anymore. That's not your problem, I said. That's his. I know. She paused. I wanted to thank you. Not just for saving my life. For being the kind of person who could do that. For being the kind of person who could save his wife even after what he did. I looked at her. This woman who had done nothing to me. This woman who had married a man who had abandoned me. This woman who was looking at me with gratitude and compassion and something that looked like respect. I'm a surgeon, I said. I save lives. That's what I do. It's not about him. It's never been about him. She smiled. It was a tired smile. But it was real. I know, she said. That's what makes you extraordinary. I didn't see Marcus again after that. I followed Natalie's recovery through her chart, through the residents, through the steady improvement of her numbers. She was discharged 3 weeks later. She went home to her husband. She went home to her life. I went home to my apartment. To my cat. To my balcony with the herbs. To the life I'd built for myself, brick by brick, with no one's help. I sat on my couch that night, scalpel curled up beside me, and I thought about what had happened. I thought about the choice I'd made. I thought about the woman whose life I'd saved. I thought about the man who had left me and the wife who had stayed. And I realized something. Something I'd been trying to understand for 5 years. He didn't leave because I was sick. He left because he was weak. He left because he couldn't handle something hard. He left because he was the kind of person who runs when things get difficult. And I didn't need him. I never needed him. I needed someone who would stay. And he was never going to be that person. The person I needed was me. The person who stayed was me. The person who held on when everything was falling apart, who rebuilt herself from nothing, who took a heart that was supposed to fail and made it into something that could save others, that person was me. I didn't need Marcus to be that person. I was that person. Here's what I've learned. Love isn't about the easy moments. It's about the hard ones. It's about sitting beside someone in the hospital when you're scared and tired and you don't know what's going to happen. It's about holding their hand when they can't hold yours. It's about staying when everything in you wants to run. Marcus couldn't do that. And I've made peace with that. Not because he deserves my forgiveness, but because I deserve to be free of the weight of what he did. I saved his wife's life. Not for him. Not for her. For me. Because I'm a surgeon. Because I save lives. Because that's who I am and that's who I've always been. And when I walked out of that operating room, when I saw his face in the waiting room, when I told him that his wife was going to live, I wasn't thinking about what he did to me. I was thinking about what I did for her. That's the difference between us. He left when things got hard. I stayed. I stayed for my patients. I stayed for myself. I stayed for the woman who needed someone to hold her heart. And in the end, that's what matters. Not the person who leaves. The person who stays. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been left when you needed someone most, if you've ever had to be the person who stayed for yourself, leave a comment. Tell me your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. I have more stories to tell. And I want you to be here for them. My name is Dr. Vivian Castellano. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I save lives. And I don't need anyone to hold my hand. But I'm grateful for the people who hold theirs out anyway.